I'll go my number one because there's a little interest there. I've moved Georgia up to number one over Alabama, and Alabama had their own blowout today. I've got some concerns with that defense. I think now we have a new piece of information with Florida playing Kentucky today and really doing nothing offensively. They were stopped all day, and they were able to have a lot of their way with Alabama's defense for a lot of that game. And Ole Miss, I do think it's cool. Like, if you're an Alabama fan, I think it's cool for you to see Alabama really shut down Lane Kiffin's offense. But there's still a lot of, like, it's 3rd and 19. Alabama has everybody set up in the right spot, and Jalen Armour-Davis plays the underneath route perfectly, misses the tackle, and now they got 4th and 1. They go for it and get it. They've had that all year, and that just, to me, tells me they're not on Georgia's level defensively. The only question I have is, again, the offense. I think that Alabama's offense might be more dynamic and might balance that out. But for now, I'm loving the defense I see from Georgia, so I got the number one.
Yeah, I've got Alabama 1 and Georgia 2. And someone in a super chat just asked if they played right now, who'd win. And I'll be honest, at the moment, even though I have Alabama 1, I'd probably lean Georgia at this second. And that's because Alabama's shown some propensity to get beat up by the opponent's run game. Like, they're not completely holding point. They did a lot better against Ole Miss than they did against Florida. And I'm not sure that Ole Miss isn't to have a better run game than Florida. But I think Georgia is going to be able to really ground and pound on a lot of teams. The hesitation I have, though, is Alabama has looked more complete and explosive at times than Georgia has. I think that was more of a matchup issue to me when they play each other. But there are a lot of teams with really good defenses, like Clemson's really good defense, kind of shut Georgia down, and Georgia could lose a lot of those games. Alabama's offense against most teams is going to be hyper effective, and there are not a ton of teams with the offense to keep up with them and the defense to be able to contain them. And that's why I have Alabama 1 and Georgia 2. And then, spoiler alert, because we both said this, we both have Iowa 3, right?
Yep. Yeah, we already did say that. I've got Iowa 3 and Penn State number 4. I think that at this point, and we said this about Oregon last week. We had Oregon number 3 last week. It's fair to give them credit, assume that they're good, and still voice your concerns about them at this slot. And I've got concerns for Iowa at number 3 because I think their offense is actually substandard. But they looked pretty good throwing the ball last night. I got Iowa 3, Penn State number 4, and Josh, my Penn State number 4 is another one of those that I'm not real comfortable with. But with everybody else losing around them, Florida losing to Kentucky today, like, what am I going to do there? So that's what I've got.
Yeah, the moment you hit number 4, this goes off the rails. If you want to call me an idiot, and I'm sure somebody's going to flip when we post a video on this, flip to the rankings and talk about how stupid we are. Look, man, I don't know what 4 through 10 are, and we've got to play a lot more games to let that sort out, and it's not going to be a power ranking. My philosophy is and this starts to really take hold at this point, I look at who you've played and how you did, and I said, okay, if another team played your schedule, how would they have done? That's the only fair way I can think of it. If Iowa State loses to Oregon, I assume you're going to lose to them every time. And then I think, okay, if another team plays Oregon in that slot, do they lose to them? And that's a hard thing to judge. So my number 4 right now is Ohio State, because I think Ohio State would beat everyone Penn State played. I think Ohio State would beat everyone, could lose to Alabama like Ole Miss did, or, they could have the same record as Michigan with that schedule, et cetera, et cetera. Oregon and Ohio State are a weird pair because they want the head-to-head, but I don't think Ohio State probably loses that game that Oregon lost today. And to me, that sort of trumps it. So oddly enough, I do have Ohio State number 4, and I personally think it's justified by my own rationales.
Number 5, I've got Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma at 5 for me is Ohio State for you at 4. They are one of those teams that has the talent and I think coaching to really put it on at some point, to really have the light come on and be a great team. Right now, I don't think they are, but they still are winning their ball games. Offense showed up today, and they needed them to. So I've got Oklahoma at number 5.
My number 5 is Ole Miss. And this is where I'm going to lose some people. But again, I don't think anyone but Alabama or Georgia is going to beat Alabama or Georgia. And it doesn't completely excuse the loss, but it does a lot. And I felt like Ole Miss has been really dominant. Like, look, like you put Oklahoma up there, right? Oklahoma and Ole Miss share a common opponent. Ole Miss toyed with them like a rag doll.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
I can't ignore that. And that's why if you want to put Oklahoma 5 or you consider it, that's why right now I got to put Ole Miss there because Ole Miss moved the ball pretty well in Alabama. They just stalled on 4th down. I don't think many other teams are beating Alabama right now, especially at Tuscaloosa. So for me, it really comes down to the fact that I think Ole Miss would beat everyone in the country but Alabama, Georgia, Iowa, and Ohio State more often than not. And that means to be undefeated against almost anybody else's schedule.
And I think we'll see. Like, for me, I think that Ole Miss is the kind of team that could absolutely beat Alabama on any given day and lose to Texas A&M the next day. So I think we'll see that they're going to end up losing another weird game, but I think we'll also see that they go like 10-2 this year.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to be proven wrong when they screw up and lose some games because of that variability. You're right, but
again, that's what we say though, right? Is okay. Make an argument for if you're going to say LOL Ole Miss, make an argument for someone else that's better. And right now, as you've kind of hinted at, there's problems. Everybody's got problems right now. So the rest of our list, Michigan beat Rutgers by 7 points last week. If that Michigan team showed up to play Alabama today, they'd have lost by 50, right? But the Michigan team that beat Wisconsin today is a little better. So that's the issue we're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Move on to number 6. I think we both, because I've seen your list now. We posted it simultaneously to each other. We got the same number 6. So who's our number 6?
I got Cincinnati number 6. This is another one I don't feel super comfortable with, but they've handled their business, and I've got respect for that.
Yeah. Look, I think there's limitations for Cincinnati offensively. Ritter is doing a good job of hitting the easy play. They had some deep shots that were really important to their consistency in that ball game against Notre Dame. But outside those shots, they weren't moving the ball really well. And I think the defense still isn't really tested because I have really major concerns about Notre Dame offensively. But given what's out there in the landscape, even though I don't think they're going to hang well in a playoff with Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, I don't think it'd be close. That's still good enough for 6th in my ranking right now with everyone else.
I got Michigan at number 7. I think that they're another team that today was a good win. I'm not super high on Wisconsin, but we give a lot of credit for handling your business against a team that you should handle your business against instead of letting them hang around and barely beating a mediocre team like Michigan did last week. Like we dinged them last week for it. They get credit this week for what they did in Wisconsin. Because look, Wisconsin's 1-3, but they've played, Notre Dame, they've played Michigan, they've played Penn State. So I think Wisconsin is a better team than their record. I just don't think they're great. So I got Michigan at number 7.
Yeah, for me, number 7 is Penn State, and I've already gone over the fact that I have a lot of questions about Penn State. Wisconsin not being very good, Auburn not looking particularly good, brings into question a lot of why we think Penn State is a top-tier team. But I do think the defense is legit. I think the offense has some dynamicism. Is that the right word? Dynamism, yeah. And Edward Chun made a good point. Like a lot of my list here is who do I think the top teams are? Or excuse me, the top offenses. Because people talk about this being the year of the defense. Either it's the year of the defense or the year of the crappy offenses. But there's only a handful of teams that have shown the ability to be dynamic offensively, and they're at a massive advantage. In Penn State, I don't trust Clifford, but they've got some skill players that give them some ability to score to tie with that really good defense, and that's starts to become pretty rare on the list at this point.
Well, I'm watching this Auburn game, and this is wild. Like, Nix has 2nd and 4, 3rd and 4, and he's throwing these like crazy back foot boundary throws across his body a little bit. Like, this is Kellen Mond in a nutshell, like the same problem. Always trying to force these crazy hard throws and not looking at the guy that's 5 yards up the field.
You're not watching the Boston College Clemson game?
No, I mean, I've got both of them up, but right now that one's
Clemson 19-13 and punting with 1:56 left. If you watch this recording, that's where we're
they
at.
hadn't punted yet. So anyway, we got to get through this. Number 8 is Ohio State for me. A lot of the same reasons you said. I don't remember. I don't think I had them in my top 10 last week. I might have, but really, I could see them inching up every week because these teams ahead of them are going to lose, and they're going to play Michigan. So we'll see. Who do you have at 8?
My number 8 is Michigan. Michigan and Penn State are both sort of question marks to me, but I think defensively they're both really good. Offensively, they've got Corum, Dotson, like they've got weapons, and then not clear options around them. Michigan's quarterback play is starting to look a lot better. But yeah, that's my number 8.
Number 9, I've got Oregon, and this is probably going to get some more eye rolls because they lost. Stanford is a bad loss for a top 10 team. It's not a bad loss if you're trying to be top 25 this year, but for a top 10 team, it's a bad loss. But they also have a really good win in Ohio State, and they get credit for that win for the whole year. I think the Fresno win is better than they were getting credit for when it first happened. So again, if not Oregon, who else? Are we putting Kentucky up there? I'm not. Like, I think that they had a good game today, but they almost lost to Chattanooga 2 weeks ago. So I've got Oregon number 9. Who you got at number 9?
Oregon, and it's the exact same thing. Like I said, if you beat a team, I'm going to assume that you can do it. You do it every time in that situation. Not many teams are beating Ohio State, and if I compare you based off who you've played and how you did against them, not many teams would have that W. I mean, Alex Rydell brought up the question: how many top 10 caliber teams are there right now? Maybe 4. like they're 10. They're 10 because there have to be 10, and our expectations are off. But we say this all the time when people say, why do you have Oregon in there? They suck. Like, well, you got to have 10, and like, tell me what the other teams are that are so much clearly better. And there's just not. And that was a big win.
I've got Ole Miss at number 10. So we both have Ole Miss still in our top 10. And mine is a lot of what you said before. It's like, okay, everybody just saw Ole Miss get blown out. And the easy thing to do if you're an AP voter is just dunk them down to unranked or whatever, and not have them in their top 10, and just put somebody who beat a directional school today in your top 10, right? Like, that's the easy and expected thing to do. But I look at it like, we're having such a hard time filling out a top 10. Let's say that Cincinnati had to play Alabama today, or Michigan had to play Alabama today. Let's say Penn State or Oregon play Alabama today. Are we totally sure that they play within 3 touchdowns of Alabama? I don't think so. I think Alabama would have absolutely gutted Cincinnati today, and a lot of people would laugh at having them ranked ahead of Ole Miss. So I've got Ole Miss at number 10, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, and I had them higher, and I want to emphasize, if you saw the score and don't know the result, Ole Miss was driving the ball in Alabama a lot. They went with a high variability game. I talked about that in the preview, that was either going to be a close game or was going to be a massive blowout. And I felt like the spread was saying was 50-50 either way. And I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I have them even higher. Not many teams would be in the position to be going for it on 4th down with a chance to score. My number 10 right now is Kentucky. They're undefeated. They beat Florida. I know they struggled with Chattanooga, but how many undefeated teams are there right now? Not that many. How many teams are there undefeated right now with a top 10 win? Not that many. And there was somebody here that talked in mid-August about the fact that if you looked at the pieces that they'd picked up with Wan'Dale Robinson, with Rosenthal, who was the best offensive tackle from LSU, Levis, the transfer from Penn State, to complement what was a pretty good defense, they were building a real team. And that offense is not phenomenal, but it's a lot better than what it has been, where it was terrible. And then defensively, they're good enough to stay in games. So I don't know that they'll stay there, but that is where it is. Oh my gosh. Boston College is going to lose off a fumbled snap.
What a way to go. That's terrible.
But
it's great for everybody who took BC plus 14.5.
Yeah. Grant Harmon said, how about them Wildcats? I mean, I literally tweeted it, and we don't tweet garbage about a lot of stuff. We try to be kind of serious when we pump up a team. there was a lot of reason to think Kentucky was probably the most underrated team in the SEC this year. Beating Florida was a big deal. And I think that Kentucky's going to have a lot of close games because they're limited offensively, but that had a lot of people not understanding how good the defense was and the ceiling ability that they have to knock off some really good teams.